A Battle Unwon, a Life Unlived. Written and read by Rhaenyra. Chapter 5. Laena. As sunlight teased Laena's eyes open, she smiled at the sleeping face of her husband. The poor thing resisted her seductions for the entirety of her pregnancy, only to finally surrender the fight just hours before her labor. He had clearly not yet regained his wits by the time she shook him awake hours later. She firmly planned to tease him mercilessly as soon as laughter no longer hurt. Her smile widened when her gaze moved to the basket resting between them, their son sleeping in it. Once they let Daemon back inside their chambers, he refused to let either Laena or their son out of his reach. And so, even though a cradle had been moved to their chambers, a basket had to be brought and lined with pillows for their son to sleep in. It was as though her husband feared them suddenly disappearing. Laena feared waking and finding their son had been a dream too, so she said nothing, quietly grateful for the arrangement. She hesitantly reached out to lightly brush her fingers along the pale hair on top of Aemon's head to confirm to herself that he was truly there. Tears of joy threatened to rise to her eyes again. He was finally there. It was with great shame that she remembered the birth of the twins. She had been so proud to have caught herself such a handsome and renowned dragon rider, a man so widely desired and yet caught by her whom many believed already in her dotage, a man that had killed her wasteful drunkard of a betrothed so he could claim her, a dangerous man willing to show her the world and treat her as an equal. And she had been proud to fall pregnant so quickly, and so proud to suffer no difficulties in her very first pregnancy, despite her age. She had been so sure that her triumph would be crowned by providing her husband the long-awaited son. When a daughter had been pulled from her body, cries weak, she tasted a bitter taste of failure. The twins had been born weak, unlikely to live more than a few moons. Laena herself had been left ravaged by their birth and unable to care for them for a long time. She had been grateful, for she had had little wish to see the undeniable proof of her failure. It had been Daemon who brought them to her, who cared for them and never showed any disappointment in their sex. It had been Daemon who eventually brought her out of the blackness that she had fallen into. She wished to make up for it to him for so long, and now her efforts had been finally rewarded. She gave her son's soft head a last careful caress and shifted her attention back to her sleeping husband. Something changed in him ever since he had woken up the previous day. There had been a certain lightness to him the day before that she had never witnessed before. It was as if a great weight had been removed from him, and nothing and no one beyond the four of them mattered or even existed. She laid a hand on his cheek and watched as his lips curled in a smile as she brushed a thumb along his cheekbone. Eyes still closed, he breathed out her name. "It is a good thing that you do not call out a different name. I might have to set Vagar on you otherwise," she told him. A chuckle escaped him and he opened his eyes to look into hers. There is little need to dream of other women when the most beautiful one in the world already lies by my side. A warm glow surrounded her heart at his words, and a warmth rose in her cheeks. "I am hardly beautiful now." He took the hand lying on his cheek into his and spoke in a whisper. "You will always be to me." Difficult as it was to move, she still had to lean over to kiss him as her eyes filled with tears. There was awe in his eyes. She had first spotted it the previous morn as well. She had never doubted her husband's care for her, but he rarely spoke his feelings, which left her uncertain often enough. He must have sensed something in her, for he sat up after she finished her kiss, eyes turning somber and taking her hands into his. "Laena, I realize something." the eyes filled with anguish pouring to hers. I don't remember if... You do know, don't you? There was a note of desperation by the time he finished. A sigh escaped her. Daemon, I have no idea what it is you are trying to say. He turned a haunted gaze somewhere over her shoulder and heaved out a great sigh. After he seemingly collected himself, he looked at her with determination and spoke carefully. Laena, I realize that I do not remember whether I ever told you that I loved you. But you do know, do you not? Because I do love you. He looked at her pleadingly. She looked at him for a moment without truly taking in the words he spoke before breaking into uncontrollable sobs. She had not known that. She had hoped. She had convinced herself. She had believed. But she had not known. He let out an anguished cry and pulled her into his chest. Have I truly never told you? She shook her head in his wet nightshirt. But surely I have shown you. He sounded aghast. When she spoke wetly. Some things need to be said to be truly known, Daemon. There was a moment of hesitation before he spoke again. Do you then, rushing to clarify, do you love me? She pushed away from his embrace to frame his face with her hands and let her heart show in her eyes. More than life itself. The end of chapter 5. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you in the next one. Bye!